The Democratic Party exists for the American people.
The United Democratic Party is our greatest strength.
We have the right policy to stand on the side of justice.
This is a moment for activism.
You're never too young to stand up.
We can change the world.
We need you
That's
to be
right.
involved.
That's it.
Get out there and fight.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Democrats Live. We are live and direct.
Lively Democrats.
High fives. We're live today. We are feeling good. We are in studio live, and guess who's here? Elizabeth Warren. Give it up.
Okay.
Let me just tell everybody, remind everybody, I will vote. I will vote. You can call 433-67, 433-67, and text commit and get information because we are organizing. And on that front, Elizabeth Warren, you've been doing some organizing.
You bet.
And you've been investing at the grassroots, at the state level. We want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I believe in the grassroots.
All right.
I mean, I believe in the grassroots. I believe that Democrats need to get in the fight up and down the ballot.
Up and down.
And that means we got to have
Up and down the ballot, man.
50-state strategy. We got to be there in every state. We got to be there in every race, whether we're talking about a race for a federal office, a state office, a county office, a town office, a school board office. We got to have Democrats who are in there ready to fight. And I believe the only way that happens is if we get organized at the grassroots level.
That's right. That is absolutely
You bet.
right.
You bet.
You know, funny thing about grassroots level, when
Yeah.
you're at the grassroots and you're talking to people in the VFW hall,
Yep.
in the church basement, at their door, you begin to absorb what they are going through.
Oh, yeah.
And that helps you in terms of being a responsive public servant, does it
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. You know, it's actually a core part of what democracy
Yeah.
is all about. It really is it's the face-to-face, it's the hand-to-hand. And you know the part, you know me.
Oh, yeah.
You do, because we've known each other for a very
That's
long
right,
time.
that's right.
But certainly long before I ever thought I was going to run for any kind of public office. And the deal is, I still remember this, the very first event I ever had for volunteers was, golly, about a year before the election. It was in Framingham, Massachusetts, at Framingham State College. Yes.
Let's hear it for Framingham,
Let's hear it
everybody.
for Framingham. And we're in this big auditorium, and we've put out the word that we're going to do our first volunteer event. And I got to tell you, I don't know if anybody's going to show up. I mean, what do you know?
Right.
So we're just barely getting this thing wired together. We don't actually know how the pieces run. And this is the part I remember. It was that I went to the hall where people are coming in the door, and I'd stick my hand out and say, "Hi, I'm Elizabeth Warren. I'm running for the United States Senate," which just kind of still gives me a thrill to say that. But people would take my hand and they'd say, "I was with Teddy Kennedy from 94 on." I said, God. Somebody else would take my hand and say, "I knocked doors for Paul Tsongas." I said, "God, that's fabulous." And they say, "I'm going to be here with you." And then the next person would say, "I have never done this before." And I would say, "Neither have I."
That makes
But
two of us.
we're going to do this together. And to me, that's what this was all about. It's the volunteers, it's the people who really are the heart and the soul of the Democratic Party, the heart and the soul of democracy itself. So I made an investment in every single state Democratic Party.
That is awesome.
Yes. You bet. Because I want every single state Democratic Party to have the resources. I want them to be able to open the doors to those volunteers, and then I want them to be able to bring those volunteers in and let those volunteers use their energy, use their time, use their talents to say, "I'm going to make democracy work for the people."
That's right.
That's how we want this to work. And it happened. It'll happen.
There are people, none in this room, who might say, well, you know, some of those states, they're red states.
Yeah.
Do we really need to invest in them? You know, what do you say to folks who
I said, yes, we need to invest in them. This is democracy. And by the way, I always like to just remind people, I come from what a lot of folks say is good blue Massachusetts. Woohoo! And I love it. But keep in mind, 1 in every 3 voters in Massachusetts in the presidential voted for Donald Trump.
See.
And that was in Massachusetts, but let me remind you of the flip side. In very red Oklahoma, where I was born and raised, and we got some Okies, I think, in here too.
All right.
Yeah, all right, I heard it. I
for
heard
Oklahoma.
it. That's right. In what's often called very red Oklahoma, keep in mind, 1 in 3 voted for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And we can't strand those folks.
Yeah.
We can't leave folks behind. We have to be in a democracy in there for everybody.
Right.
And I actually mean that both ways. And I really do. I mean it in the sense that in Massachusetts, I feel like a big part of my job is not just to talk to the Democrats, not just to talk to people who are all in already, not just to talk to people who already agree, but to reach out and talk to people who saw it differently and who, I hope, are thinking about what's happened.
Right.
Both that led to that election, but are thinking about what's happened since then and what they want to see from their government, how they want to see a government that works for them. And I think about it in states that are red states. There are a lot of folks we need to reach out and talk to, a lot of folks who've already voted Democratic, a lot of folks who are thinking about their votes. That's what democracy is all about. That's what the marketplace of ideas is all about. It's about getting out there, talking about what you believe in, fighting for what you believe in, getting them in.
Well, you know, you're saying something that's dear to my heart. In fact, I'll even say that sometimes I want to tell Democrats, don't just talk to the folks only to win the election.
Yeah.
Talk to the folks about their lives.
Yeah.
Because there's more to being an active citizen than voting. There's going to a community meeting. There's writing a letter to the editor. There's all kinds of ways to be an active citizen. And if you only talk to people around the election, then they think you only care about the, come on, right?
Election.
And then you don't come back until the, and they start seeing a pattern here, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, why should I help you go to Washington so you can rub elbows and be on TV? They don't see what they're getting out of it. Is there value in engaging people just because they are our people and they deserve to be listened to and be part of this democracy?
There is. So this is the part I see right now. I think this is just an extraordinary moment in history. It's a moment, let's just be blunt, when the Republicans are just going hammer and tongs, not just on policies we care about, but really democratic foundations.
Yeah.
Voting,
Yeah.
right? Keep American citizens from voting. That's part of their direct strategy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Going after courts. Keep them from being independent and kind of, you know, the folks who really do call the balls and the strikes, steal a Supreme Court seat,
Sure.
right? And just deliver it for your donors. A free and independent press, right? Right now, Donald Trump, who just says, listen only to me, right? To a big part of the population. They're going after these foundational pieces in democracy. But here's the deal. At this moment, democracy is rewiring itself. You know, we now live in an America where people are changing their views about what it means to be a citizen, about what it means, what's your obligation. And I think for a long time, for a long, long time, most people have said, my obligation is to vote. You know, come on. I vote every 2 years if you're a Republican, every 4 years if you're a Democrat. Right?
That was a joke,
That
y'all.
was a joke. You're supposed to laugh. You're supposed to laugh. Instead, I heard somebody over here say, yeah. That's right. I got that. No, you're supposed to laugh. But the point was that voting was the whole deal. That was your active citizenship. You read a little, maybe, you watch a little news, and then you vote in the big elections. Boy, I don't think so anymore.
Right.
I think folks are now getting deeply engaged, and they see democracy as something they invest in, not every few years. They see it as something they invest in every day. That's why I'm in.
That's right.
Yeah.
Could you just hear it for that point?
Yeah. Don't step on my lines here. Yeah.
I want you to unpack this idea. So many of us look at West Virginia teachers. We look
Oh, man. Yes. Let's hear from West Virginia.
Yeah.
Oh, and can we say just a little word for Oklahoma teachers, for Arizona teachers, for Colorado teachers, right? For Kentucky
Arizona.
Teachers. Yeah.
Louisiana's looking at it.
Oh, the teachers. You know I was a teacher. You know I was a public school teacher.
See, this question was sort of a setup, right?
Yeah, exactly. Good. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on that.
No.
Oh.
But I just want you to sort of like unpack this idea that before the West Virginia teachers went out, there would have been people, maybe some in this fine city of ours, who would think, look, those guys, they voted for Trump, they're not going to go on strike for students, they're not going to get out there, they don't believe in that, they believe in trickle-down economics, they don't believe that in that kind of thing, they're fine with the way things are. And we found out they were not fine with the way things
Boy, no
were.
kidding.
And they showed us something to think about, and it wasn't it wasn't just West Virginia. That's kind of the point. It was Oklahoma. It's all these other states. Could you help us understand something that may have defied some folks' conventional wisdom?
So, look, here's how I look at this. When you ask people about their parties, yes, you can identify the red states and the blue states and do a whole deal around that. When you actually start unpacking the economics of what your life is like,
Come on.
the economics of your values, what you think this economy ought to reward, who you think this economy ought to support. When you start asking questions about opportunity, should we invest more in our schools? Should we invest more in our kind of basic infrastructure, our roads and our bridges, our communications, our power? And why? So people in all kinds of areas get a chance to start a new business, and they've got basic infrastructure there to have it work, right? They get a chance to grow their business a little bit. You ask Americans about that, and they say, yeah, I'm in for that. And you say to Americans, so what do you think? Do you think people ought to be able to get an education without getting crushed by student loan debt? And they said, man, I am so in for that, right? No, they do. They do. You ask people, should Americans be able, after they've worked for their whole lives, should they be able to retire with dignity? And people say, yeah. And even when you translate right into, so that means protecting Social Security, maybe raising Social Security. They say yes. You say, what if you had to pay a little more? They're in. You ask people about, should people who work full-time still live in poverty, or should they make a wage that actually lets them support a family? Say, I am so in for that. So you ask these core economic questions, and the world doesn't divide into red states and blue states. In fact, what happens is we see a huge majority of Americans, of upper middle class Americans, of middle class Americans, of working class Americans, of the working poor, of the poor who say, sign me up for that. I'm in on that program. So here's how I see this, Keith. I see it as we know the core, we know the values that reflects, we know what it is that Americans are hungry for, what Americans believe in, how Americans believe that we build a future. We just got to show them that the best way to make that happen is we got to get organized as a party, and we got to vote. And then, once we vote, as Democrats, we damn well better deliver.
You gotta
That's
deliver.
how I see it.
I love it. I love it.
That's what we got to do. Yeah.
I wonder.
I like these guys.
Yeah,
yes.
they are awesome.
They're in. And this is just a random sample.
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
America. Yep.
I also want to ask you this question. It's often something that people, want to talk about. It's like, well, on the one hand, is it white working class, or is it people of color and rising American electorate? And that question always surprises me because it presumes a lot of things that are just not right. You want to talk about that?
For openers, it presumes this is an either-or world.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. What we're really talking about in America is how we build a future together. How we build a future where not just the kids who are born to rich families have real opportunities going forward, but the kids born to everybody have a real chance to build something going forward. And I think it's like, what do you really think America's about? What do you really think that government is about? Do you think that government is there, to satisfy the lobbyists, to satisfy the donors, to make sure that the rich and powerful get richer and more powerful?
No.
Well, I'm sorry. That is trickle-down economics.
That's what it is.
Trickle-down economics says cut taxes for those at the top, in other words, make the rich richer, and deregulate, in other words, make the powerful more powerful. So if you think that's what government is, there's your model.
There's a party over there for you.
There's a party over there. Starts with an R. But if you really believe that the function of government, look, is to provide for the common defense, is to make sure that we've got rules and regulations, people drive on the right and nobody steals your purse or your pension, right? If you believe in kind of these, get that one in there. Your purse or your pension. That's right, the level playing field part of this. But you also believe that what we can do with government is we can all pitch in a little to create opportunities, to build a future. I was reading something not long ago that back in 1935, that 90% of people who lived in urban America, in cities, I'm not sure they called it urban America back then, but in cities, had electricity. And think about it. Private companies, it actually made sense because you didn't have to go very far. You didn't have to string a lot of wire in between. But only about 10% of people who were living in rural America had electricity. So what did we do as a country? We said, we're going to all pitch in some money, whether you live in a city or whether you live in a rural area, whether you already have electricity or whether you don't. And we're going to build out that power infrastructure. A lot of it was called rural electrification. I grew up in Oklahoma where it was a big dang deal. Rural electrification. But the point was, we all invested. And why did we all invest? Because we said, if you're going to build anything in a 20th century economy, you got to have electricity. And we're all in this great human boat together. And so all of us pitch in, so all of us get a chance to build something going forward. And to me, that's kind of the heart of what it means to be a Democrat.
I agree.
I'm in. I'm in.
So we got any folks who want to jump in here? We can ask some questions of you folks.
Who we got?
Yeah, I do think we have time for one question, I think, from our audience.
Oh, make it a good one. Okay.
Hi, my name is Sam, and I have an incurable autoimmune disease. So with the current administration in office and the current Congress installed, I'm obviously very nervous about the state of healthcare, pre-existing conditions, things of that sort. So obviously your plan is going to be better, but I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about what you'd like to see happen if we win in 2018.
So let's do it. That's really good, Sam. So let's start by saying what we believe as Democrats. You got to start with what's the center of the goal for you, and that is healthcare is a basic human right, and Democrats fight for basic human rights. Period. So once we know that's where we're headed, our question has to be, I believe, as a party, is how do we get there so that we are delivering best possible care at lowest possible cost? And that's ultimately what we're looking for on this. Now, we've got a lot of paths on Medicare for all. We've got a Medicaid for all. I've co-sponsored on multiple ones, all trying to aim toward how do we make sure not just that everybody gets coverage, but that people can actually afford their health care. I think that's absolutely critical. And so as a Democrat, what I want to see going forward is I want to see when we get elected that we're ready not just to defend what we already have through the Affordable Care Act, although I always want to say, yay for the millions of people who now have health care coverage who otherwise wouldn't have. Thank you. Thank you, Democrats. Thank you, Barack Obama. Without it, no. How many people have health care who otherwise never would have had?
Millions.
But it is time for us as Democrats to build on that terrific foundation and expand not just the access to health care, but boy, we got to hit on affordability. And if I can, I'll say one more thing on affordability. We talk about the government's role here, powerfully important, but boy, there are other players in this system. We got to talk, for example, about those drug companies.
Come on.
And what they're charging and what they're pulling out of the system in profits. Look, right off the top, there are a couple of things we could do. We could say that the government can negotiate with those drug companies to bring down the cost of prescription drugs that we're doing on Medicare and Medicaid. Another one, if they won't do it, then we should be talking about whether or not to import some of those drugs from Canada.
That's good.
Where often people are paying 1/10 of what they're paying here in the United States. There is so much we could do. The good news and the bad news is all wrapped up in one. There is a lot we could do, but the good news is we get back, we are committed to do it.
Committed to doing it.
You bet.
You give us the gavels, we're going to do something with them.
We're going to do something with them. I like that.
So let me just say, Elizabeth Warren, what a joy it's been to have you here.
Always fun.
Let's hear it for Elizabeth Warren. We love Elizabeth Warren around here. She is popular.
It's fun.
But I just want to tell you, you'd be proud to hear about this young person who's going to come up on Good Trouble right now. Our newest segment of Good Trouble highlights the great work of organizers, campaigns, and organizations that are doing a great job around this country. This next segment comes, there's going to be a young lady we're going to feature, Maria Beltran. She's a young organizer, and she's organizing for change in Yakima County, Washington. Take it away.
Maria.
How long can we be patient? We want our freedom, and we want it now.
When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, get to stand up and find a way and to get in trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble.
My name is Ellie Bettis. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. My parents brought me to this country when I was about 4 years old. I went to elementary school in Phoenix, I went to middle school in Phoenix, and I went to high school in Phoenix. I had amazing teachers who told me that if I went to school and if I got good grades and if I worked really hard, I could do whatever I wanted and I could have a good life. When I turned 16, I learned that I was undocumented, and that changed my whole life. I had planned to be a trauma nurse, but when you're 16 and you realize that you can't continue going to school after that, your dreams kind of shatter. I did the most American thing that anyone would do. I started to fight back, getting people involved, getting them registered to vote, and getting them out to the polls. Teaching them what your American duty is, to stand up and to fight for others. This is the country where dreams come true. I grew up as an American. I am an American.
Thank you, Maria. Maria Beltran, everybody, holding it down in Yakima County. You know, I'm going to tell you, this Democratic Party of ours just survives on the enthusiastic, passionate energy of people like Maria, and we are grateful to her and everybody out there standing up for us. So, hey, look, this has been another edition of Democrats Live. I want to thank this wonderful studio audience here. Definitely want to thank Elizabeth Warren. And on behalf of Tom Perez and the DNC board and our awesome studio that puts this Democrats Live on, good night. See you next time.